And we're going to be looking at what has been taught for literally thousands of years regarding the ages of the world and the last age of the world. What we're going to look at right now is the Winchester Bible Genesis Initial. Have you ever heard of that? Well, it's very interesting, and I want to share it with you. Here you're looking at a large cathedral in England. I believe it's the largest one, Winchester Cathedral. There was also a song by that name, some of you might remember. And this church is a Church of England in Winchester, Hampshire, England. And it was consecrated in 1093. So we're talking almost 1,000 years ago. In the library of this cathedral, there is a Bible that has been there for 8 centuries. And I don't know if I've ever seen anything that's been there for 8 centuries, but especially something like a Bible. But it's quite amazing, and it's still there. One thing about the Winchester Bible, it's the largest and finest of all surviving 12th century English Bibles. And it was written by one single scribe, the entire Bible. And not only that, but it's very, very fancy. There were artists that worked with the Bible and exquisitely illuminated the capital letters and other illustrations in vivid colors. And these glowing colors set in gold are as intense today as they were 800 years ago, which is pretty impressive, I think, that can be the case. And this Bible is quite huge. Each book of the Winchester Bible begins with an oversized decorated first letter called an initial. So that's each book. And you have here a picture of what this looks like. The initial prefacing the Winchester Bible's book of Genesis is the most impressive of all of the initials in the Bible, and it is very complex. And it contains an idea. It contains a worldview, a viewpoint about the passage of time and the scriptures that is very interesting. The Latin text of the book of Genesis begins with in principio, which means in the beginning. So to introduce the book, there is a letter I, a large letter I. It is an elongated shaft of the letter that runs almost the full length of the page, which is 23 inches. So that's a big book. So it's actually quite large, really larger than what we could picture it here. And, of course, it's all in Latin. In fact, that's essentially the only kind of Bible that was available that long ago, a Bible written in Latin. Bibles were not translated into the common language of the people at that time. Within this tall letter are 7 roundels formed with a series of interwoven bands holding them all together. Within each roundel, we find a different biblical scene, not limited to the book of Genesis. Now, this is unusual because with all the other initials, of course, they relate to that particular book only. But with this initial, these roundels relate to a larger length of time. They encompass the ages of the entire Bible, and with it, the entire history of salvation. Here we have the first 3 of the roundels in that initial. Of course, it begins with Adam and Eve, and then it has Noah and the ark, and then Abraham and Isaac. Each of these scenes meant to depict a different age or epoch in the Scriptures. And all of these are found in the book of Genesis. Moving down this I initial, we have Moses on Sinai. Now, this is not from Genesis, is it? It's from the book of Exodus. And then we have a picture of the anointing of David. This is from later still in the Scriptures. This is, according to the timing that we know today, about 1000 BC. And then we have the third roundel, which shows the birth of Messiah. That was about 2,000 years ago. And these are meant to portray biblical history. Finally, there is a seventh roundel. And the seventh roundel depicts the age to come that we read about in the book of Revelation and actually in many of the prophets, in which the Messianic kingdom will reign for 1,000 years. This is all very interesting. The Genesis initial here then, at the start of the chapter of Genesis, in which God created the world in 6 days, depicts 6 ages of the world corresponding with the 6 days of creation. In other words, the idea here, which was a mindset held by virtually all Bible believers by this time, that the days of creation were actually prophetic of ages that have been counted off since the time of Adam. And then the 7th day of creation is the great Sabbath day, and it's illustrated here as corresponding with the millennial reign of the Messiah, a great 1,000-year Sabbath rest for the world. Very, very fascinating, isn't it? How the days of creation were seen as prefiguring the ages of the world. This view of the ages of the world, illustrated in the Winchester Bible, now almost 1,000 years ago, has been the normal view of history for at least the previous 1,000 years before the Winchester Bible. So in other words, this view of the ages of the world was already ancient at the time that the Winchester Bible was written. And we actually do not know how far back this understanding of world history actually goes. There are hints of it in the Scriptures. So as we look at this, we kind of marvel at all of this. And what about this idea that the ages of the world amount to 6,000 years with one last age, the Sabbath age, the Messianic age of 1,000 years? We ask, is this view of biblical time ancient folly or eternal fact? Let's dig into that a little bit. We have a chart here that I put together of the 7 days of creation. And most of this is all included in the first chapter of the book of Genesis. And here I just want to pause a minute and invite people to come and sign up for our free Torah course. And it starts out with a teaching on Genesis chapter 1, teaching all about these creative days. And I guarantee you, if you come and you take that free trial and you listen to this and you take this course, you're going to hear things you probably never heard before, and you're going to see Genesis a whole new way. So tonight I can't really go through all of that, because I have a bigger subject, the ages of creation, which is pretty big. But if you're interested in learning more about this first chapter of Genesis, then please do come to our website. That's www.tsiyon.org, and sign up free. It'll cost you nothing, and take the course and try it out. Well, as we look at this, here's a few highlights. You notice it shows all the way to the left, Genesis, the beginning. And the first few sentences in the book of Genesis, in the beginning, are an unspecified amount of time before the days of creation began. And you could picture this a lot like, say, a potter coming into the room and putting a lump of clay on the table, arranging things to get started with his work. So this is what was happening. This is what our Creator was doing, is getting ready, getting started for his creative work. On the first day, light was created. And no doubt that's the full spectrum of light, not just visible light. And he separated the light from the darkness and the day from the night on the first day. On the next day, the firmament was created. Now that's pretty amazing. And what is the firmament? People still can't tell you what the firmament is. It's something that is basic and fundamental to the nature of the universe. It probably involves what scientists call today the quantum world, and which they haven't even been able to explain yet because it involves something so small they can't even see it. But it's called firmament because it has a firmness to it, a structure to it, and the entire universe is built upon it. And this is what Yahweh made in day 2. And with the firmament, he separated the waters above from the waters below, leaving the sky, that is space, what we call space, in between. On day 3, he separated the waters from the dry land, giving us now seas and land on the earth. And he created land flora, that is plants in the earth. On the third day, notice he has not yet even created the sun, and he's got plants growing. That's totally a different pattern, I think, than what most people might expect. But he is Yahweh, and it certainly is something he could accomplish. On day 4, he created the sun, the moon, and the stars in the firmament. And we can look up and see them. Right tonight, you can look up and see the moon if you're here with us in Greater Austin, Texas, or somewhere else where it's nighttime. You can see the stars. Basically, he created, at that time, the light of the world. And that as opposed to divine light. You see, up until now, all the light had been divine light from him. But in the fourth day, he created the light of the world, the sun, the moon, the stars, and using them and the way that he set them into order as his great clock, they mark off the time for us so that human beings can be on the same clock, if you wish, as he is on, that we can fellowship together with him. Indeed, this day, Sukkot, is marked off as a special day. And it's marked off by the movement of the moon. And that's why we're celebrating Sukkot tonight. You know, in these modern times where we have calendars on our wall, clocks on our wall, on our computer, we don't stop to think about where all that time comes from. But it really all begins, doesn't it? Out there where Yahweh set the lights in the sky. Then we have day 5. We have fish and birds created, and they swarmed in the sea. They swarmed in the air. And Yahweh blessed them to multiply in the earth. Day 6, the land animals were created. Men and women were created. They were blessed and given rulership over the earth. Yes, all of this that Yahweh had made, he had made for them. Men and women were always his heart's desire from the beginning of creating all of that he has created for you and I. I love to have a cup of coffee in the morning. When I have that cup of coffee, you know what I call it sometimes, laughing? The sacred nectar. I call it that because it reminds me that Yahweh cares about me. He created something that I really like and enjoy. Evolution would have no reason to do that, but he did it. What about all the beautiful colors? What is your favorite color? Why do they exist? Why are they so beautiful? It's because your Father loves you, and he knows that you will enjoy them. Everywhere we look in his creation, we see his great care. We see his great love for us. And what we see and experience in the natural world, all the beauty, all the riches that he's poured out for men and women, that all agrees perfectly with the picture that we have here in these 6 days of creation. Well, then finally we have the 7th day, and it tells us his work was finished, and he rested. And he blessed the 7th day and made it holy. We have some questions. We have day 3. We have full-grown trees in 24 hours. You know, some people would say, well, he's Yahweh and he can do anything. He can cause trees to grow in 24 hours. I certainly don't disagree. He certainly could. But that's really not what the account says. The account says that the earth yielded the grass, the herbs, the seed, and the trees. This is suggesting the natural process of how that all works now. The seeds, the trees, the grass. And so, while some people assume that these days are 24 hours, they don't really have to be 24 hours. And really, if we look more closely at these days, they suggest to us that they are time periods longer than 24 hours each. We want to know more about that. Actually, the word day, or yom, the Hebrew word yom, is used in more than one way in the scriptures, even in the book of Genesis. For example, we have from the International Standard Bible Encyclopedia, it says this: on the meaning of day in the story of creation, we note the word day is used of the whole period of creation. This is the history of the generations of the heavens and the earth when they were created in the day that Yahweh God made the earth and the heavens. So we believe that in harmony with Bible usage, we may understand the creative days as creative periods. Now, it's pretty hard to argue with this because even if you think the creative days are 24 hours long, when you think of the entire creation, then that would have to be more than 24 hours, right? So at least in that one place, a day would have to mean more than 24 hours. So obviously, we're using the word day or yom in a different way than strictly 24-hour periods. Genesis uses the word day, actually, for two distinct time periods we've seen so far. Day means the individual creative periods, the creative days, if you will, or all of the creative time periods as one. That covers a huge period in the word day. But this is not all of the uses of day that apply. There's another relevant day in Scripture. Psalm 94 says this, "For 1,000 years in your sight are just like yesterday when it is past, like a watch in the night." And 2 Peter 3:8 says, "But don't forget this one thing, beloved, that one day is with the Lord as 1,000 years, and 1,000 years, one day." So here's another time period called a day, 1,000-year period. So now we've got these three kinds of days. A day equaling 1,000 years, each of the 7 individual creative periods, and a day equaling all of that put together. So we wonder, how do these 3 days relate to one another? Finding that relationship really explains a lot to us about the ages of creation. Assuming all 7 creative days are of the same length, if we could identify the length of one of the creative days, then the length of all 7 could be known. So that's what we're interested in. We want to understand these creative days a lot better. So we're going to see if we can unlock the length of one creative day. How long is the 7th creative day? That's the one we're going to look at. Now let's read what the scriptures say about the 7th creative day. "The heavens and the earth were finished, and all their vast array. On the 7th day, God finished his work which he had made. And he rested on the 7th day from all his work which he had made. God blessed the 7th day and made it holy, because he rested in it from all his work which he had created and made." So we notice that the 7th day is different from the others because it is a great Sabbath day which he blessed. It was a time when he looked at all that he had finished making over the 6 creative days and rested from further creative activity. So we have some questions about this. Each of the previous 6 days comes to a definite end in Scripture. When you read through it, that's what you see. Every day is clearly defined. The end is defined. What verse tells us the 7th day of creation has ended? Do you know a verse that says that? That the 7th day has ended? Actually, you don't, because there's no such verse. The scriptures don't say the 7th day has ended. No end is listed. And in fact, that's because the 7th day, Yahweh's Sabbath day, has not ended. Now, we have some scriptural proof to corroborate that, besides the fact that we have no end to that day in Scripture. This is from Hebrews chapter 4, verse 4 through 11. It says, "For he has said this somewhere about the seventh day. Elohim rested on the seventh day from all his works." We just read that. Then it says, "And in this place again, they will not enter into my rest." Now that was much later that was said. That actually originates in the Torah, but now it's repeated in the Psalms. They will not enter into my rest. And it goes on, "Seeing therefore it remains that some should enter therein." So what is this actually telling us? It's talking about that original Sabbath day. There's no question about it because it's actually quoting Genesis 2. And it is saying that some did not enter it, but it remains that some should enter in. That means that the Sabbath of Genesis 2, which is the same as the Sabbath of Psalm 95, was still going on, meaning thousands of years had passed since that Sabbath day had started. In other words, the seventh day of creation Sabbath still remained in the time of David. Well, did it stop then? Hebrews goes on, "There remains, therefore, a Sabbath rest for the people of Elohim. For he who has entered into his rest has himself also rested from his works, as Elohim did from his. Let us therefore give diligence to enter into that rest, lest anyone fall after the same example of disobedience." So here again, now this time it's in the first century, right? And we're told that this Sabbath still remains. So we're talking now a period of roughly 4,000 years later. That Sabbath rest was still continuing. So obviously, the seventh day must be a period of thousands of years. So how long, how many thousands of years must it be if it has not ended and it's still going? Well, ancient Jewish sages say that the last age of the world is a total of 7,000 years. 7,000 years. Let's read some of the things they said. The Talmud comments, "Our Katina said, 6,000 years the world will exist, and 1,000, the seventh, it shall be desolate. As it is written, and the Lord alone shall be exalted in that day." And further, he said, "It is written, and the Lord alone shall be exalted in that day. Further, it is written, a psalm and song for the Sabbath day. For 1,000 years in thy sight are but as yesterday when it is past." Now we started out saying, just as the seventh year is the Shemitah year, so too does the world have 1,000 years out of 7 that are fallow. So what all of this is about is the Jewish writers saw the 7-year periods that are part of the Torah, that were kept as part of the Torah, as actually being a picture of this seventh day period with 6 days of human labor and then a Sabbath of 1,000 years. Here's more. The Midrash says 6 eons for going in and coming out, for war and peace. The 7th one is entirely Shabbat. The Zohar says the redemption of Israel will come about through the mystic force of the letter Vav, which is the number 6, namely in the 6th millennium. Happy are those who would be left alive at the end of the 6th millennium to enter the Shabbat, which is the 7th millennium. So all pretty much the same idea. 6,000 years of human history as we know it today, of mankind, and then 1,000 years of Sabbath coming at the end. That's what the ancient Jewish writers said. Now, what about the ancient Christian writers? Well, they too said the same thing. It would be 7,000 years would be the length of that time period of the years of the world. Here's what some of them have said. For example, this is the Epistle of Barnabas. This is really very early, in the early centuries. It says, in 6,000 years, the Creator will bring all things to an end, for with him 1 day is 1,000 years. In 6 days, that is, in 6,000 years, all things should be accomplished. He rested on the seventh day. He means this, that when the sun shall come, he will truly rest on the seventh day. Very, very much like what the Jewish writers said. Here's one of the so-called church fathers, Irenaeus, in his Against Heresies. This is probably written later than it's saying right here, probably more like in the 3rd century. And it says, for in as many days as the world was made, in so many thousand years shall it be concluded. They will come to an end at the 6,000th year. And then Cyprian said the first 7 days in the divine arrangement contain 7,000 years. That's all pretty clear, I think. What we've seen is believed, and has been believed for thousands of years, is that there are 7 ages of 1,000 years each. And for 1,000 years in your sight are just like yesterday when it is past, like a watch in the night. A lot of these quotes quote that. And 2 Peter as well, 1 day is 1,000 years. But I think the thing that is really pretty convincing going along with this is from the book of Revelation, where it says about the length of the millennial reign being 1,000 years. Because clearly that is a set-apart period. Clearly it represents a Sabbath day, and it's 1,000 years long. So if the Sabbath day is 1,000 years long, how long are the other days? 1,000 years, right? So this is why this has been pretty much universally believed. Well, then we have this. This is from the book of Enoch, and it goes one step further. It tells us that there's an 8th day after the 7 days are over. It says, and I appointed the 8th day also, that the 8th day should be the first created after my work, and that the first 7 revolve in the form of the 7,000, and that at the beginning of the 8,000 there should be a time of not counting, endless, with neither years, nor months, nor weeks, nor days, nor hours. Now this sounds a lot like the book of Revelation, doesn't it? And other places in Scripture that talk about what we sometimes call the consummation, the period that we will enter into in the very end that is eternal. And this is pictured as being an 8th day because it comes after the 7th day. Now, from this point, we know what the ancient sages said. We know why they said it. But the ancient sages didn't say what I'm going to share with you now. So this part is new. Now, when I say new, what I mean by that is this. About 20 years ago is when I first learned these things. And I did do a presentation about this 20 years ago using an overhead projector. And it was kind of funny because all the type was really small. People couldn't really see it very well. And they weren't really ready to hear it. And nobody in the room could really understand any of it. So what I did in one night with those overhead projections, I've now broken up into several nights. I have better equipment now. And now is the time to share these things with you. So when I say that others haven't seen this, actually there was one group that did see it, but they don't remember any of it. So I'm glad to share it with you. So let's take a look now at the math of how all this breaks down. I think those rulers give you a clue, don't they? Here's all 7 days of creation. If Yahweh is anything, I think he's precise, he's consistent in his work, in what he does. And if his seventh day, his great Sabbath day, is 7,000 years long, then wouldn't we expect that the other creative days would be of a like length? And if that be true, then what we have is a total of 49 periods or ages of creation. 49 ages of creation divided up in 7 periods. Does that ring a bell with you at all? The 49 ages of creation are actually commemorated in the Sabbath year count and in Shavuot. Leviticus 25:8, you shall count off 7 Sabbaths of years, 7 times 7 years, 7 Sabbaths of years, even 49 years. I think the sages were right that the timing of the Moedim, that is the appointments of Yahweh, are directly connected with the creation. And when we keep the appointments of Yahweh, whether they be the Sabbath itself, whether they be the appointments throughout the year, or the longer periods, the 7-year Shabbat, all of that ties into creation. The people of Yahweh that keep his holy time through the very act of living in his time proclaim to the world that the Creator is real. And that's why this is important to me. It's not because I'm a bean counter. I don't care much for beans anyway. It's because in this I see our Creator. I see his precision. I see the symbols that he uses to communicate with us. And I just see how real this is, how we can enter into this relationship with him. This is shown also in Shavuot. And it says, you shall count for yourselves 7 weeks, actually Shabuas, or 7 periods. From the time you begin to put the sickle to the standing grain, you shall begin to number 7 weeks. You should keep the Feast of Weeks to Yahweh, your Elohim. Again, a period of 7 times 7, or 49. The 49th age of creation is the same as the 7th age of day 7. By this time, this very last age, by the end of that 49th age, all must be perfected. All must be done, must be perfect, so that Yahweh can look upon this seventh day as he did the other 6 and say, it is very good. And it is this last age that is the millennial reign of Messiah and the overcomers. And if we know our Bible, we know what happens during that millennial age. All evil is rooted out of the world. Righteousness reigns. Perfection is everywhere. There is no stain of sin in the world. There is no stain of evil in the world. The knowledge of Yahweh will cover the earth like the waters cover the seas. This is that final age, the 49th age. It is an age of release. Release from sin, release from death, release from everything that's evil. Shemitah means release. Every 7 years is a Shemitah year, the year of release. Deuteronomy 15, 1 and 2 says, every 7 years you shall make a release. This is the way of the release. Every creditor shall release that which he has lent to his neighbor, because Yahweh's release has been proclaimed. Interestingly, Messiah died on a Shemitah 49th year. And I'm going to share that with you in an entirely different presentation another time. But that is the fact. He died on a 49th year, a Shemitah year, to bring us release from sin and death. Perhaps you remember this. We read this recently in Zion Academy. He opened the scroll and found the place where it was written, the Spirit of Adonai is on me, because he has anointed me to proclaim good news to the poor. He sent me to proclaim release to the captives, the acceptable year of Adonai. He was talking all about release. He was talking about a Shemitah. He was talking about his death, releasing mankind from sin and death, and setting Israel free. And we're soon to see this come to fruition in our day. So now we look back, we see 3 different kinds of days or ages, the 1,000 years, each of 7 creative epochs of 7,000 years each. And we see all that together. One day covering all of it, a total of 49,000 years. Even those 49,000 years do not bring us all the way back to the beginning, right? Because there is no time given for that, for the beginning. So we don't know how far back that was. It could be a very long time. So now that we understand the ages of creation and what the scriptures can tell us about them, we wonder this. What comes after the 49 ages of creation? Well, let's look at that now. Leviticus 25 says, you shall count off 7 Sabbaths of years, 7 times 7 years. And there shall be to you the days of 7 Sabbaths of years, even 49 years, corresponding to those 49 periods of creation, 1,000-year periods. You shall make the 50th year holy and proclaim liberty throughout the land to all its inhabitants. That 50th year shall be a jubilee to you. So really all of this is exciting, but the most exciting part is the part that's not included in these 49 years of creation. It's what comes after them, a great jubilee. Revelation 21 tells us about that, about what happens then. Creation starts again. Isn't that interesting? The great Sabbath is over, and creation starts again. What we have is now a new heaven and a new earth, a new creation. And then what happens? New Jerusalem comes down from heaven. Everything is new. And then we hear a voice from heaven. Behold, Elohim's dwelling is with his people, and he will dwell with them. And they will be his people, and Elohim himself will be among them. In that amazing jubilee, we're not going to go to heaven. Elohim is going to come and live here with us. That's what's going to happen. And do you know how long? Forever. He who sits on the throne said, Behold, I'm making all things new. He said, Write, for these words of Elohim are faithful and true. He said to me, It is done. I am the Aleph and the Tav, the beginning and the end. I will give freely to him who is thirsty from the spring of the water of life. He who overcomes, I will give him these things. I will be his Elohim, and he will be my son. First Corinthians chapter 15 talks about this time period, the great jubilee that comes after that 49th period. Then the end comes, when Messiah will deliver up the kingdom to the Father, when he will have abolished all rule and all authority and power, for he must reign until he has put all his enemies under his feet. The last enemy that will be abolished is death. That's talking now about his entire work, but culminating certainly in that great messianic age, that last 1,000 years of the age of human rule, and what he would accomplish, putting to an end all enemies, even death itself. And it goes on, he put all things in subjection under his feet, but when he says all things are put in subjection, it is evident that he has accepted who subjected all things to him. In other words, all things will be subjected to Messiah except for the Father. When all things have been subjected to him, that is to the Father, then the Son will also himself be subjected to him, who subjected all things in him, that Elohim may be all in all. What we're looking at is really pretty much beyond words, something we've never seen, something that's very difficult for us to imagine. But we're talking about a new creation in which Yahweh is present in everything and everyone. Truly an amazing future. This chart kind of illustrates what we're talking about. Isaiah 57:15. For so says the high and lofty one who inhabits eternity, whose name is holy. I dwell in the high and holy place. Try to fit your mind around that. Eternity. Do you know time is just a concession to us? Yahweh doesn't need it. He dwells in eternity above it all. Why does he know the beginning from the end? It's all the same in eternity. These 49 ages of creation are kind of like the womb in which a baby is formed to be born into the world on that special day. It's the womb in which Elohim's family is being formed and raised up and built up and being perfected. Even being redeemed and saved. Going through the entire process. You know, I think if you could look inside a woman's womb with that baby in there, many of us would choose not to do it. Because even though it's an amazing miracle going on in there, it's pretty messy. It looks pretty raw in there. It looks like almost anything but what it is. But something amazing is going on there. And at the end of that process, which involves a lot of pain and yet a great wonder, what do you get? A beautiful, wonderful child. And if you're the parent, you see that child and you are filled with love, and no matter what it took, it's worth it on that day. Everything else is forgotten. That's what the ages of creation are about. Everything that's necessary to bring forth the family of the living God. And it's messy, and it's not always a pleasant thing to look upon, but it's purposeful, and everything is necessary. And something is being formed. We're at a very important point in that process right now. Something special is being formed. Do you feel that? Do you feel a call to be a part of that? Nobody can give you that, you know, only Him. If you're a part of that, you know it. You know, you really might be a part of all that mess that just washes away at the end. You could be. And if you are, none of this will make much sense to you. But if you are part of that purpose of His, part of what He is planning, part of His family, then you'll understand what I'm talking about. And you'll understand how worth it all is. Even all the pain, all the suffering, all of it that's happened, how worth it all is to be there at the very end, to enter into eternity with Him. Can you imagine that? Can you imagine stepping out of time into eternity with your Creator? What happens then? Nobody can tell you. Because now you've just arrived at zero. That's when it all will really happen. Then. That's when Yahweh plans to shower gifts upon His family that are literally beyond our imagination right now. So the ages of creation are great because they're going to get us to the place where we can enter into eternity. That's really what they're all about. But then, in that 50th age, which is forever, we're going to think about those ages of creation less and less and think more and more about all the blessings we're enjoying and all that Yahweh is to us, our all in all. That's the ages of creation. But what is that I hear? Somebody saying, wait a minute, can you put any dates on that? Well, actually, a number of people have put dates on that. And coming up next time, we're going to talk about it as we look at the ages of the world.
Was this video informative? Remember to hit the like button to help spread the word, and share your thoughts in the comments below. Don't forget to subscribe and hit the notifications button so you'll get updates on all the great content coming from Eliyahu Ben David.